What's up, guys? Ready for part two, Super Mike. All right, y'all, we're going to be dealing with a few things this morning. And I want to go into a little bit more of this science. Science is a big subject. It's a huge subject. And history. Or biology, too. Yeah, what's up? All right, y'all, what's going on? This is Super Mike 2164. Press the like, press the share button, and subscribe. I'm getting together a little program so everybody pay attention that listens to the show. I'm gonna be giving y'all some money. We can get us to some good subscriber goals. I'm trying to get, reach a milestone of 200 subscribers, and then we be, probably give 3 people some money, like $100, $50, and $25. So we'll be doing that soon. I'll be announcing it, seeing how I'll come up to it. You guys better get your Cash Apps ready, and we'll get that done. But today, we want to deal more with this the violence situation, as far as the mentality or the secret warfare, basically. It's the reason why they don't want to educate our Black children. And they really don't promote Black children and Black people understanding even the fundamentals of science, understanding the fundamentals of mathematics, really digging and understanding history. It's a reason for that. Because if you understand these type of things easily and you can really get this here, then what ends up happening is you can compete for that alpha position. You can really compete. So you got to realize that these people are scientists. The universe gives up its gifts to those who understand science, mathematics, and can make those mathematical calculations based upon a record called history that they understand and know. And that's all the future is, which is basically a sum total mathematical prediction or mathematical eventuality of all the decisions in the present and based on the past. So this is the reason why when you understand history, you become better at predicting the future. And when you understand mathematics, you become better at predicting the future. But first, I want to go into a few of current news. We'll go into a couple of stories because, there's a few stories I have I really didn't cover much. And this is the Final Call newspaper, which is the largest owned, operated job creator for Black people in America. This is the current edition. This is Final Call Digital. Make sure you guys get subscribe to the Final Call digital newspaper, and just go ahead and pay for the year, man. What's wrong with you? Just get it. Just get it. So, uh, in this situation here in Minneapolis, you got Derek Chauvin. Of course, he was convicted. Uh, we'll see what kind of sentencing this animal's going to get. You know, you got Ben Crump and them over there making money with Al Sharpton. But you know, it's going to be a time, guys. We're moving into another phase. We were in a phase of trying to reason with even our own people and trying to convince everybody about what's the right way to go, and you know, making it easy for people, you know, brothers and sister type environments. But as the enemy steps up their attacks on us directly, just murdering us, basically. The enemy is just so angry. They're just out here murdering us, really, literally. You know, we got a situation in, you know, Columbus, Ohio with Micaiah Bryant. You know, you got a race soldier. I mean, jumped out the car, and he said he's seen a knife. He got way too many black people defending the enemy, the behavior of the enemy. Now, yes, I agree, and I know that situation should have been avoided because literally those black parents were there. Those black parents were there. But you got to understand, people. If you do not understand that you are literally people with guns, with weapons, and with the ability to genocide you, people have declared war on your type of folk, which is black people. If you don't understand that, then you're going to be making these excuses for the outright murder and behaviors of folks who should not even be in your community. And these type of behaviors, like, for example, if you look at the Micaiah Bryant situation, you see her father, or a man that purported to be the father, sit there being violent with other women in the community, but allows a race soldier, a white cop, to come out and murder his own daughter. And all he does is look and say, "You shoot my baby?" That is not funny, but what it is it's not natural behavior for a father. If you're going to be violent, you should be violent right there. That is the perfect time to be violent with the enemy. It doesn't matter if you live. If your kids don't live, then you're dead. They're the extension of you in the future. So, yeah, it's insane. So the point is, you know, these behaviors, these type of weird behaviors are a result of government manipulation in general, of our behavior modification. This is science, guys. And it's very invisible, and I understand that people can't see it. They don't know. Y'all don't know nothing about this. Y'all just blame everything on the black folks. But this stuff is deep. You got the Dante Wright shot, murdered. Why? Because he ran. Why? Because you got fight or flight. He was scared for good reason, and he was killed. Okay? So they tricked us into feeling safe. Chauvin conviction doesn't heal all wounds nor guarantees sanctity of black life in the U.S. So I encourage everybody to look into that. You know, Minister Farrakhan spoke at DMX's funeral, and of course, and he didn't even say anything controversial. The minister taught some really inspiring, uplifting stuff. It was so inspiring. It touched some people, like the Shark Tank's dude, whatever this dude's name is. He's supposed to be a rich guy, Fubu starter. He decided to, you know, say, "Hey, Minister Farrakhan's speech was inspiring," but because there's a there's a J, this other community who hates us. This is what you call warfare, guys. This other community who trains the police with the Israeli Defense Force. They train our American police on how to deal with us. These people were offended because black people like Minister Farrakhan, which we love. I love Minister Farrakhan. And really, it's going to become down to the people who are sell out and will not sell out. So, those are some of the events. Morris Brown College nears reaccreditation after 20 years. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta president on reparations. There should be a discussion about redress. No, there should just be money. We don't have to have no discussion. Okay? I mean, the thing is, we can have a discussion about money, redress, money, states, resolution. We shouldn't be jumping through all these hoops. This country literally is not able to continue to function in this way. You have to settle this score. You have to settle this. As an American system, you must settle it and it be over. Too much of our stuff has been stolen. Okay, so let's read about this little Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta president on reparations. Count, sounds like Dracula. Count Raphael Bostic, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, among the growing and vocal majority who support reparations as a way to address the consequences of racism in America and inequality in America. There are definitely merits to it, in the sense that if people have been harmed by laws, then there should be a discussion about redress, Mr. Bostic told CNN Business in a recent interview posted on Monday, March 29th. We didn't hear too much about that in the mainstream. The legacies of past racism are still present in our society, said Mr. Bostic, who in 2017 became the first black president of a regional Fed bank. We have to think about what things are necessary to offset impacts to those old systems that still flow through. In the interview, Mr. Bostic specifically called out systematic obstacles that inhibit wealth building among minorities. You see, that's true. They inhibit wealth building, including redlining and other forms of housing discrimination. But it was more than just financial warfare. It was scientific warfare. We have African Americans today who have a lot less wealth, he said, in part because they have not been able to inherit the wealth that would have accrued had their ancestors been able to accrue that wealth. And I encourage you guys, you won't get this type of news. This is part of how they control, how an enemy controls your perception, because they dealing with the type of information and stories that you consume. So this is something else to go into with Final Call. So we got pushback. Vaccine push faltering in the U.S. Yeah, and we know we don't want that shot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch here. I want everybody to check this out here. We're going to go into this scientific assault here. We're going to go into the scientific assault. Let's look at this here.
Aggression and violence, clearly fundamentals of the animal world. But from where in an animal's brain does such behavior emanate? And if we found such a site in an animal, could this volatile area also be located in the animal part of the human brain? An early experiment to locate the whereabouts of animal rage was performed on a bull in a Spanish bull ring. This strange archival film tells the story. In the 1960s, Professor Jose Delgado took a normally hostile bull and implanted electrodes into its brain, electrodes that could be activated by a radio transmitter. His objective was to see if stimulation of the bull's midbrain could short-circuit the rage signals, stopping the bull before it reached the matador. After the bull had recovered from the implantation and in mid-charge, the button was pressed. The bull's aggression ceased instantly, or so it seemed. A clearer experiment was performed with cats. In this classic example, the hypothalamus, the rhythm maker, was implanted with electrodes. Could it be responsible not just for rhythms, but also for rage? The switch is turned. Then the switch is turned off. So indeed, the hypothalamus does control certain types of aggression. Now, how could one possibly confirm this startling finding in human beings?
All right. So it shows us here that these people wanted to control and wanted to understand this violence situation here. How is behavioral control? Remember, we read this yesterday. And remember, we noticed, and this is from Jane Baird at the 1974. This is the year that I was born. This is actually January, so it was like a few months before my birth. But this is what they were studying, and all of us who are grown and adults now, we are victims of this science. This is the science that they were putting out, and even before we were grown. So after the riots in 1967, in a letter to the Journal of American Medical Association doctors, Vernon Mark, this guy is Vernon Mark. Vernon Mark. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it all. Anyway, this is Jose Delgado. Excuse me. The guy who did the bull experiment. Jose Delgado is the one who did the bull experiment with the electrodes in the brain. He did monkey experiments too. This is all for us. They put this in human brain. See, these are electrodes in a human brain. It's not a monkey. See that? And that's a female. And it is this female. This lady right here. You know, these are the type of things that Julia in a pleasant mood. And then they made her go crazy. They made her go crazy. You know, this is the type of stuff that these people do. This is William Sweet. These are the people who set this up. We should know these things. This is history. This is medical, you know, racial. It's not just, it's racial, but the thing is, it was used against black folks, even though this is a white lady here. This is a white lady, but this was used against the undesirables. This is Vernon Mark. This is a dude. Vernon Mark, professor of neurosurgery at Massachusetts General. So after the Detroit riots, you see, keep in mind, this is for black people. See, after those riots, you know, when they seen that, not just that, because in between the 1970 and 1950s, there were over 1,000 riots and uprisings because black people were sick and tired of being sick and tired, which is natural. We wanted to take our own dominance. And notice in the 70s, 80s, all that kind of calmed down, didn't it? And then the influx of drugs, right? This is that. This is what we've seen in this history. This is why that happened. Okay, Frank Irving. This guy right here, I think. I, I think this is the one that's him because there's two pictures of Frank Irving, but I think this is the one that is him. Yeah. So remember, this type of treatment they suggest in the book Violence in the Brain, published in 1970s. So this is what these guys did. The core of violence in the brain consisted of the case histories of 4 patients who received psychosurgery. The core of the opposition lies in the long-term follow-up of 2 patients, Thomas Julia, which is that lady. The doctors themselves now admit that there have been no long-term positive results of their operation in the patients. So they messed that woman up. Okay. Uh, Thomas' mother is now suing Mark for $2 million. This is in 1974, with a charge of negligent malpractice in violence in the brain. The doctor said that Thomas was wild and unmanageable when they suggested making destructive lesions in his brain. He first agreed. See, they talk to you in such a way to get you to agree to an experiment. He first agreed to the operation while stimulated by electrodes in his brain. So he agreed to it while he was being stimulated by electrodes in his brain, which induced a hyper relaxed state, as he described, a feeling like Demerol, like floating on a cloud. So this is drugs. Thomas' mother also claims that his life was ruined by the 1966 operation. Before the operation, Thomas had been an engineer and inventor who held patents on the land camera. After the operation of 1968, Veterans Administration Hospital declared Thomas totally disabled for the first time in his life. The courts declared Thomas an incompetent, and his mother became his legal ward. Julia S. is an epileptic with a long history of seizures, assaultive behavior. Dr. Mark's operation on her did reduce her violent behavior, but her seizures and psychotic behaviors have continued. A nurse who had known her before and after the operation made these statements. He implanted a couple of electrodes and proceeded to burn out section of her temporal lobe. The only problem was that her impulsive behavior did not leave her, and she began to deteriorate in front of my eyes. She stopped her wonderful guitar playing. She stopped wanting to engage in long intellectual discussions. She became more and more depressed and suicidal. So this is the experimentations that these type of doctors, and these are the folks that were being funded by the United States government to deal and solve the problem of the black person. Okay, so let's listen to a piece of Dr. Wesley's book before I read it, and then we'll be out of here. All right.
Dr. Lowy says, we found that many of these Negro Muslims were highly intelligent. Here again, we have to apply techniques, which we heard about in terms of appreciating what the goal of the Muslims.
So the thing is, they're talking about the Muslims were in jail, and they were doing in-house jail experiments, trying to learn how to do behavior modification on black people in prisons, and then they were going to bring that behavior modifications out into the streets, into the neighborhoods as a prison culture.
Muslims is, and then doing some analytic study of the methods that they use, that we can try to dissipate the forces that are going in the direction that we regard as destructive. The United States government has been faced for 400 years with a Negro problem. The United States government eventually settled on a final solution to their Negro problem. I use that term, final solution, advisedly, as I use the term Holocaust advisedly. We will get to that in a moment, but the government settled on a final solution to its Negro problem. But in trying to execute that final solution, they encountered another problem, the black Muslim problem. The black Muslims have been giving the government a problem, have been a thorn in its side in executing its solution to that Negro problem. The Bureau of Prisons, like the rest of the white power structure, was confronted with this black Muslim problem. And let's unpack this. What was the general mischief that Elijah Muhammad's highly intelligent black Muslims were creating in the prisons?
All right, so this is the guy who wrote this book I'm about to read. Hold on a second. This is called The Assault on the Black Man, the Black Manhood, and Black Masculinity. He wrote this part in here that this is part, let's see, on part 11. The pharmacological, excuse me, the pharmacological solutions keeping the black man subordinate. Now, the thing is, back in the 70s, because of those riots, and you got to realize that they were scared of that because it destroyed property. And so they couldn't do those psychosurgeries on people because you see how it affected those other folks, Julia and Thomas and all that. It messed up their brains, and people were suing them and stuff, so they couldn't do that. So they went back on using drugs to try to alter the brain's behavior. And let's see here. I'm going to read part of this here. I'm just going to read a couple pages. So it's called Dominance Hierarchy Studies. The controversy over psychosurgery forced Frank Irvin out of Massachusetts General. He got kicked out because he messed up people's brains. He landed in the University of California at UCLA in 1972, 1978, where he continued his violence research and even his psychosurgery research. He collaborated with a group of UCLA scientists who in the 1970s and early 80s conducted research on the mechanics and the biological biochemical role in social dominance hierarchy. They studied the interrelationships between the dominant male groups and subordinate male groups. What distinguishes dominant males from subordinate males behaviorally and biochemically, and how dominant male groups thwart or stop challenges from these subordinate males to maintain their dominance. By studying the colonies of these African green monkeys and applying their observations to the human social setting, Michael Raleigh, Michael McGuire, and their team at UCLA postulated that a society's dominant male group, which is these white males in this country, and the subordinate male groups, or like the black people, will engage in competitive relationships over and over resources, and each will display a wide array of competitive behaviors in order to gain an advantage to either maintain dominance in society or acquire dominance in society. For example, UCLA scientists postulated that increases in the number of subordinate males threaten the status of the dominant males. Besides physically reducing and restricting the number of actual subordinate males, a defensive strategy available to the dominant males is to permit the subordinate males to freely engage in otherwise restricted illegal behaviors. This frequently engaged in deviant behavior will distract subordinate males from engaging in the kind of confrontations with dominant males that will get them dominance. In other words, America's dominant white males gain an advantage by permitting subordinate black males to engage freely in illegal behaviors in the isolated ghettos of America, for this keeps the black males from challenging the white dominant male. And so basically, this Frank Irvine said that they had from his research, they had 4 research interests. They wanted to assess the impact of environmental change on the biochemistry of normal people. For example, the scientists created experimental depression in some juveniles by separating them from loved ones and then measuring any changes in brain chemicals. And they did this to monkeys. They did this to these monkeys and to study how this would affect people. And studying the social, number 2, they've studied the social consequences of scientifically produced brain damage, which meant they cut pieces of people's brain out, lobotomies and stuff. And the research damage produced brain damage. The brain of some normal monkeys through psychosurgery, removing tiny pieces of tissue from the frontal cortex, thought to be associated with emotion and mood, and then returned the brain damaged monkey back into the population and studied the behavior. And then they studied the effects of the brain altering drugs on the monkeys, making them crazy violent. So, that's all I'm going to read for this right now, but we'll get some more into this next week. But the point is, when we start looking at crack, when we start looking at, these weapons like lean and all of this government weed with all of these little chemicals sprayed on it, we need to understand that it's not by accident. And the thing is, when people start talking about this stuff, and just because we don't know about it, we think that it's all up to. Just because we don't know about this stuff, we think it's all just a coincidence. But no, it's not a coincidence. This is all manipulated behavior because you're not in control of where you live. You're not in control of the resources in your community. So that's the type of fight that we have to have as a Black community, because right now we depend on a government for all of our resources, and they're using those resources to control and experiment with us. And that's why we act crazy in the streets. That's why we got so many nuts running around with various behaviors in our community. And it's dangerous. It's not something that we can maintain. All right. All right, y'all. Share the message. And like I said, I will be coming up with some kind of little prize. I'm going to be giving out money. So it's going to be $100. It's going to be $50. It's going to be $25. It helped me get up to 200 subscribers. Once I reach that number, get your Cash Apps ready, and you got a good chance because I don't have that many subscribers. So whoever's name is in that pile is going to get that money. All right? All right, y'all. Peace.